Hello and welcome back. My name is Jerry Cook and I am the Awkward Optimist. Thank you for joining me today. And there's a lot of things that I want to share with you guys. I've learned a ton over the last 2.5 months. For the last 2.5 months, I've given myself challenges or daily challenges to help me become more optimistic. You might be wondering, are you an awkward optimist, or what in the world is an awkward optimist? Well, it's a phrase that I've began to use a little more than 2.5 months ago to describe my challenges with becoming more optimistic. You see, there's times where I just wanted to be happier, where I wanted to think more positively for a lot of different reasons, not only for myself, but to benefit my family as well in particular. And I really struggled because there's things in my past that just seem to kind of haunt me or dog me. And it's kind of like having a Superman cape, but at the same time having a piece of kryptonite in your hand, and it's just you want to fly, but you're really grounded in a sense. So I'd say that I'm optimistic in some situations, but I want to be more optimistic. I talked about in my previous video, to be optimistic isn't to be wishful thinking, it's not to be in denial, but it is to focus on the best good. And I have to tell you that focusing on the best good of my life has brought me enormous blessings, and it has changed me and it has changed my family. No, I'm not a complete optimist already, but I am a pretty effective awkward optimist, and I'd love for you to join me on this journey. So, one of the things I'd like to ask you is, are you optimistic? It's a question that I've given to a lot of different people, and it's interesting to see their responses. I've given the question to my class, some of my classes I teach at the university, and most overwhelming majority of those that I ask see themselves as an optimistic person, which is interesting because according to Dr. Seligman, the majority of individuals who report that they're optimistic tend to overestimate how optimistic or positive they are. And so it's not to say, hey, you need to be down on yourself. You need to tell yourself that you're horrible in how you think. But it's just to take an accounting for who we are and how we think. And I think that's one of the things that I've really learned from these daily challenges is I can truly be in control, or at least accountable for my thoughts, and learning how to improve them. So again, the majority of those that I have interviewed or have surveyed say that they are optimist, or that they at least think positively, almost always. And yet, one of the same questions that I ask them is, how often do you think about your mistakes? Most of those who surveyed tend to say that they focus on their mistakes more than their accomplishments. Now, for me, that's not an optimist, because that's not focusing on the best good. A person who is optimistic is not focusing on their mistakes, but they're learning how to. They learn from it and they move on. They don't focus on the mistakes. They focus on what's ahead. And so I've looked at that as well as the research from Dr. Seligman. And again, the reality is that most of us overestimate how optimistic or positive we are. I want to give you just another quick example of the things that I've given my classes. And if you'd like, you're welcome to join along in this process. I've given my students these and many other fill-in-the-blank activities. And you're probably already going through them. So let's just look at it. Peanut butter, and I imagine that most of you have already said jelly or jam. Matter of fact, 99% of all the people that I've surveyed say jelly or jam. It was a dark, most people say a night, or a dark and stormy night, or it was a dark outside. It was most people tend to consider outside or the weather. When I make a mistake, most people say they feel sad or angry or disappointed or discouraged. Matter of fact, 98% of those who answer this tend to say those kinds of answers. And then true happiness is Most people say possible. Some people say likely in the future. True happiness is going to come to me, basically. And before I do this last one, I want to talk a little bit about these. The reality is that we tend to be around certain words that trigger certain kinds of thoughts. So you probably went ahead of me and said peanut butter and then filled in the blank with jelly or jam. Most of you would have also said it was a dark night or a dark and stormy night. When I make a mistake, I fill blank. And what's interesting about this is that certain patterns are developed where we don't even think about it. So what I'm saying here is that when we're around certain kinds of words, they tend to trigger either optimism or pessimism. And we need to be really careful about the kinds of words that we're around that automatically trigger pessimism. For example, I could be around some people in my life, and when they're complaining, it just fuels my pessimism. It just keeps me going, and I start complaining as well. And it's not just about the people, it's about the words that are used. For example, if I said, well, can you believe the weather today? Right? So some things tend to just trigger pessimistic thoughts automatically without us even really giving any thought about it. Another way of looking at it is to say, well, okay, if they automatically trigger these kinds of things, can I change them? It was a dark chocolate candy bar. When I make a mistake, I feel that I learn from those things. True happiness is right now, right? So some of you might be laughing, going, this is crazy. Why would I ever say that? And I guess you're kind of making my point, is that when we're around certain words, they tend to trigger a certain emotional response. And so I encourage you to be aware of the words in your life. Not only the words that you hear from other people, but the words that you speak, and the words that you speak about yourself in particular. Now, going on to that last statement, I commit to blank today. What's interesting, and I didn't think of this, I didn't know that this was going to happen, but 100% of the people who answer this question said something positive. I commit to being positive. I commit to being happy. I commit to being outgoing. I commit to being friendly today. No one ever said, I commit to feeling discouraged today. I commit to feeling depressed today. I commit to feeling sad today. No one said that at all. And so this is the other side of it, that when we say that we're going to commit to doing something, that fuels optimism and positive thoughts. So think about the words. Monitor the words that you use and the words that you're around, and catch what words tend to spiral you into thinking critically or negatively or complaining or gossiping, and which words help you be more optimistic and focusing on the best good in your life. So I give you that challenge today. It's something that I've been working on for the past 2.5 months, and I have to tell you, it's really helped me. And I know it's really cliche, but it has changed my life completely. And I have a long ways to go. I am a university professor. I have a PhD. I have several credentials. But you know what? The classroom is not the same thing as real life. And so I am working on this, and I hope that you'll join with me. Take care, and hopefully I'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.